God was Lamb, here again. God was Lamb would like to make one more video today. This would be the third video. And God, who is known as Grant Salvin, would like to talk about God, Satan, and Lucifer, the devil, and words, and how they work, and the story of Adam and Eve, and try to make a point about how all this works, and explain things a bit better. So, in the book of Isaiah, book of Isaiah, chapter 14, verse 12. How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. You have been cast down to the earth, you who once laid low the nations. It's interesting because, the Israelites were told to not worship the sun, the moon, or the stars. Okay? Some translations translate morning star as Lucifer. It's very hard to make sense of these things. Jesus himself said he is the morning star, didn't he? Which is interesting because he also said he is the light of the world. God Grant has been watching, has noticed some videos on YouTube talking about, seems to be a few, it's quite a few black people, black churches who are teaching, they're talking about Jesus being Lucifer. Well, there are white people who talk about that as well. Anyway, what does Lucifer mean? It's interesting because, the Catholic Church, they have like a big telescope, don't they? And they call it Lucifer. Yet nobody seems to, they don't seem to care, which is interesting. Yeah. These are all words. They're all words, and words have power. So, so Lucifer means the light bringer. So, that's the thing, light emits from all kinds, you are watching a device, you're watching a computer screen or a phone screen, or maybe even a TV screen, probably. It emits light. So, in a sense, it brings the light. What did God say? God said that he is an unapproachable light. Isn't it interesting? You've got all these people who are on screens these days, and you can't approach them. You could try to comment them and send them messages, but you can't. You can't. If you wanted to move towards them and, hit them in the face or something, you can't do it. And you could break your TV screen or something, or your computer screen, if that's what you want to do. But, okay, so this is a torch, okay? This is a torch, okay? Whoa. Yeah, it's a light. You carry a light on you, that makes you, in a sense, you qualified as Lucifer. You're a light bringer, or maybe you're a smoker and you carry a lighter with you, or maybe matches, for instance. Yeah, this is a lighter. This is a cigarette. A lot of people think of Satan being the red dragon, the serpent. The fact is these terms, they can apply to evil spirits, and they also apply to God as well, because think about it. It talks about the red dragon cast out of heaven, down to the earth. Well, think about it. If God comes down to earth to be in a man's body, well, he's not up in the heavens anymore. He's down on earth. But then, well, that's the thing, what is heaven? That's another question. Exactly. That's the thing. God's throne is in heaven. It's part of God's body as well. God is magically connected with heaven. It's part of his body. You know what they say about the church? God is the head of the church. Jesus is the head of the church. The body, those who love God make up the body of Christ, of God. Okay? So, this is the thing. So Isaiah, that's from the Old Testament. So, he's talking about the morning star. Some people think that the morning star is Venus, which shows, it's usually the first thing you see in the morning. It looks like a bright star in the morning before the sun rises, usually, depending on like time of year or whatever. But yeah, it's more magic. That's what it is. People can keep labeling things different things. If you make something in the likeness of God and then call it David, all you've done is you've just applied a new label to it. You tried to apply a new label to God. That's what you've done. And so anyone who's called David are going to, start to, their minds are going to start going like this, and they're going to start to think very highly of themselves, probably. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's kind of how it works. That's how magic works. And, God is described as being the Word, the Logos. What's a log? What's an O? Logos, or the Word, logos, brands. Why do you think people pay so much money for a brand? Like a £5,600 Omega watch. Why would anyone want to do that for? Power. Yeah, because it gives them more magic power. It's them trying to acquire more magical powers, taking it away from God. If you imagine God's power as like a giant lake, for instance, a giant lake of water, as an analogy, and everyone wants to siphon that water towards themselves. They want to have, they want that power for themselves. And God, God wants to sustain people who love him, but people who don't love him, they'll get cut off, and they'll die of dehydration. They won't get any water, and they'll just dry out and die, and they'll regret all the bad decisions that they made in their life. Well, they'll be faced with all their own bad decisions, and they were warned. They were warned. Anyway, God, Satan, Lucifer. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, Sat-an, you have anus, us. What does us mean? Is the anus called an? And you've got anal, 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 like all people, everybody. Eve, matter. That's in Latin, that means mother. She's the material world, she's the serpent. Evil bitch, who wants to be the god of the world. Look at the Catholic Church. They all want to worship her. Well, Jesus is on the cross dead. You know, you're worshipping physical material. You know, they're worshipping idols made of wood and stone or metal or whatever it is, you know, and pictures and whatever, right? You know, and you're worshipping physical objects. And the thing is that, you know, God is the source of all power, and everyone is attracted to it. Everyone is attracted, you know, like moths are attracted to light. You know, they're attracted to flames. You know, they see that light. And they have to, they fly to it. They can't help themselves. They just have to. So, you know, God, he tries to sustain people that he loves, his children that he loves. But, you know, everyone's doing it, whether they're good or bad. You either have good intentions or you have bad intentions towards God. See, people want to steal the light for themselves, and they want to pretend that they are the light source. Why do you think that YouTube, yeah, isn't that interesting? You means female sheep, EWE, right? Tube, what's a tube, right? You know, you could say, you know, female sheep colon. Yeah, do you know what a semicolon is? A colon? Yeah. You know, you see it in text. Yeah, you see it in the Bible. Yeah, colon, semicolon. Yeah. So, yeah, so Mother Earth, yeah, and Father who loves his children is spirit. There's a war between the spirit and physical matter. That's what's happening. And what most people have done is they're completely about the physical. Even a lot of people who say that they love God are still completely stuck in a very physical way of existence. The Catholic Church is a very good example of that idea. You know, they are not very good, but you know what they're doing is terrible. They are literally worshipping the world in idol form, the matter. You know, in Latin, they speak Latin, don't they? They do their rituals, their paganish, witchy rituals, and you know they use the dead language. You know, the matter of Jesus, Mary. Anyway, what was the point? So people, you know, they want to talk about the devil and Satan and Lucifer. You know, they want to say that, you know, they try to think, okay, so God is you know, is good. There's no evil in God. That's what Jesus said, right? He said there's no evil in his Father. You know, God is just. You know, whatever God decides to do is justice, whether you think it's good or evil or not. Think about that. You know, who are humans? You know, who are humans? You know, the ones that God created. Who are they to judge God's actions and say whether it's good or bad? So, you know, you have the story of Adam and Eve. What did they do? They chose to want to be like God. The serpent said to them, the serpent, you know, wanted them to try to steal God's power from them. You know, God specifically told them if they did that, they would die. Imagine being created by God, and then you challenge God to try and take his place. Yeah, I mean, what does it say about the story about Lucifer? The morning star. I mean, the fact is that, you know, Jesus was described as the Son of God. Okay, and now in English, in the English language, the word for son, like son of man, and the sun that's in the sky, they're pronounced exactly the same. And the Israelites, they were told, do not worship the sun, moon, or the stars. You know, who did the Romans worship? Yeah, Solus Invictus. Yeah. You know, you notice how Prince Harry, well, he used to be called Prince Henry, but you know, he's Prince Harry, you know, the son of Charles. Yeah, Charles III, the king, who has the same birthday as Grant, 14th of November. Grant's biological dad, who was a sperm donor, essentially, called Charles. And when Grant went to boarding school in 2001, about a week before 9/11 happened, went to boarding school called Charterhouse. You know, Grant's, you know, Grant, you know, the book, the Harry Potter book, just came out just before Grant went to boarding school. You know, and what is, you know, Hogwarts. You know, Grant never was interested in Harry Potter crap. It's a reflection of God, because Grant's God. The world is constantly, what it does is it tries to draw on God's energy. So through art, you know, whether it's music or books or, you know, what it is, it's taking part of God's story. You know, it's trying to take something that, you know, that God is associated with, and then it mixes it with all kinds of other stuff for the purposes of evil. So what it is, it's basically, you know how a witch's cauldron works, right? You know, they put all the different ingredients in and they stir the pot, and then, you know, that's the thing, you know. For instance, you know, Grant just did a review of a C.S. Lewis Bible. You know, what has the Bible got to do with, you know, well, first of all, Bible, you know, God said don't worship the bull. You know, Moses said don't, you know, destroy the, you know, the calf, the golden calf statue, yeah. Don't worship the bull. But then, you know, you have a book, you call it Bible, by bull. It's very, you know, listen to the sound. C.S. Lewis by bull, which is interesting because Grant's dad was called Charlie Salvin, okay, and he was married to Fiona Salvin, who was the mother, the biological mother of Grant, and she was a Taurus. You know, that was her star sign. Bull. Okay. Very evil, angry bitch. Very demon possessed, by the way. But that's the thing. The C.S. Lewis Bible, what is it? So it's him putting all his writings and, you know, like bits of his writings and his poetry and his works in there, and the pot's being stirred. That's what it is. So, you know, that's him siphoning God's power towards himself, because that's how people do it. You know, they want to stand next to God in order to, you think about some rich celebrity, right? And then, you know, what most people would call somebody who's a nobody, you know, who wants to associate with them, you know, they just like, oh, it's like, you know, and people, you know, the rich people, they can never seem to trust who they can rely on, and this and that and the other, right? Because everyone wants their money and their power and their fame, and they want to leech off them. Yeah, well, that's exactly how it is for God. Yeah, you know, the evil ones will sneak into the churches, or they'll sneak in, they'll sliver their way into the Christians' attention. You know, that's what the serpent does. The serpent wants to sliver its way in and be like, hey, you know, and they want to twist things and they want to stir the pot. That's what it is. So, you know, getting back to, you know, what Grant was saying about God, Satan, Lucifer. Satan, well, look, the word Satan. No one says, well, they say Satan, don't they? You know, Tan, or Satan, or Satan. You know, what does Sat mean? Sat-an. Okay, look, Grant's going to put something on the screen quickly, so, So, what have we got here? We go to... Let's see. Grant's looking for a picture. Quickly. This will do. This will do. So let's have a quick look at this, okay? So can you see what that looks like? It's like, it's an eye in a triangle, and look at all the lines that go around it. You notice how it looks kind of like an anus. Because that's what it's supposed to be. That's what it represents in magic. It's all about sex magic. That's why they're, you know, that's what they do. That's really what it's all about. That's what evil, sick-minded Freemasons do. Yeah, you noticed when Rihanna did her Super Bowl, she did her Super Bowl performance, and at the very end, you know, she holds her hands up like this to the sky. You know, it's what she's being a witch, is what she's doing. You know, it has many different meanings and implications. What she's doing. You know, she may have been pointing to a particular constellation in the sky as well, perhaps. Hard to say, really, but but that's the thing. You know, she's a sexual deviant, and way worse. You know, she's very, very evil. People have no idea what she does behind closed doors. Most people have no idea. How would you know? Well, God has done a lot of investigating. Yeah. Anyway, so Satan, the anus. Okay? Also, you know, what is this? You know, Satan, the devil, they're called, you know, they're referred to as the accuser. And that label, the accuser, can apply to anyone who is judging. Yeah, Jesus specifically said, "Do not judge." For that, you know, that's one of the reasons why, you know, don't judge. But God has to do this. You know, God has to accuse. God has to judge people, right? Does that make any sense? So then you can label, you know, that's it. You know, God, Satan, Lucifer. Well, you know, Lucifer, you know, it means the light bringer. It means the morning star. So it really depends how you look at it. It's a magic word. What do people call the toilet especially in the country that Grant lives in, the United Kingdom, in England? They call it the loo. Yeah, loo, cipher. What's a cipher? You know what a computer cipher is? It's like code. It's magic. It's magic is what it is. It's the shit trying to work its, instead of, you know, what goes down the loo is part of, you know, the shit is the matter, the mother, the material world. And that shit wants to elevate itself to heaven. You understand? That's why the world is the way it is. You know, the evil whore, she's the one who wants to be in heaven. And she wants God's power. But she is not going to have God's power God is the source of all power. The matter simply masquerades, pretends to be. That's why there's this magic with the evil eye, the third eye, the anus. Because that's where the matter vacates the body, and it's star-shaped. It looks like a star. Jesus said, he is the light of the world. The light of the world is a star. It's the sun. It's the sun. So the matter, the mother, the material world wants to masquerade as God by doing this magic. So hopefully this has clarified things a little bit. Not to mention, Grant has a bit of a loose verse. Yeah, well, that's that's because of magic. God had to do things to win this war of magic. Because people do things that they do, and God has to play them at that game as well. Otherwise, God has to play that game. That's simply how it goes. Yeah. So, people want to think that Satan or Lucifer is, some particular individual. It all relates to God. I mean, you think of the dragon that is cast down. It can apply to evil ones, and it can apply to God as well, because God comes down to earth. It's the double-edged sword. That's what it is. People make all kinds of assumptions, but you have to understand that, like Jesus 2,000 years ago, he had to fulfill the words, the prophecies and so on. He had fulfillment to do, right? It's the same now. It's the same, God has to fulfill things in a certain way. It's about magic. It's about, God is the Word. So, all the things that people do and say and how they stir the pot, it all affects God. It affects God in many different ways, and God has to play this game with people until it ends. And when it ends, God will be happier, and most people will be very sad and be very angry, and they'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth because they'll be cut off from God, essentially. But God has to play the game he has to play. What is a dragon? Well, when Grant was 16 years old, he went to his mother's 40th birthday party dressed in drag. Grant's girlfriend at the time, she thought it was a good idea. Everyone wanted to see Grant in drag. They thought it would be funny. So Grant did it, and he didn't really care. He just got drunk. Grant smokes like a chimney. The thing is that that's the thing. The story of Adam and Eve is, people often wonder, like, what's that story about? Because they ate, the serpent convinced them to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Isn't it really interesting that the story doesn't really explain that much? It leaves it open to interpretation. So it's a magic story, but if you were to know all the specifics of what happened there, then you would be exposed. The knowledge of good and evil. God is explaining the world. The world and the spirit, there's a war going on. It's a magic war that's going on. That's how it's been since the beginning. Adam and Eve, they started a magic battle with God. Essentially, yeah. Well, they decided they wanted to replace God. So God had to do what God did, God had to do that. God had to, well, imagine, a man lives with his children in his house, and then they decide to attack him and try to, take his house for themselves. Well, what's he going to do? He's going to kick them out and say, get lost. Bye. You ain't doing that in his house. No. Okay. So this was really just a quick video to explain that. It's interesting because in the book of Revelation it talks about, the first beast and the second beast. Who are they? People want to think, and the man of lawlessness and the son of destruction, or the son of perdition, or the son who comes to destroy, or the son who comes to, who's going to be destroyed. All the different translations no one can seem to, make up their minds about it. How strange, huh? Weird, huh? But God has to play this game with people. The fact is that God has to do what God has to do. There are people that need to be taken out of the way, and God will do that in the way that God wants to do it. Nobody can tell. People can. God loves who. Those who love God, God loves. But God needs to be respected. God is the ultimate authority. God is in charge. God does what God has to do. If people don't like it, they don't agree with it, well, it's their problem. If they want to know, if they want to ask God why and talk about it, discuss it with God, God is happy to. God is happy to discuss, but it is what it is. So, no one seems to be forthcoming. No one seems to want to know anyway, so what else is there to say? I mean, that's the thing, the original languages were translated. So, you've had, what means the accuser has become personified, It's been personified and made into a singular, but all it is evil spirits wanting to take power from God. God is the only one with his powers. There is nobody else who has God's powers. Nobody. And what people try to do, evil spirits want to do, they want to take that from themselves. They want to try to mimic God and they want to be worshipped as God and try to make themselves another God. But they're not God. They're not another God. They're just pretending to be God. That's it. That's the best they can try to do. God is God, and people want to make assumptions about what God is or what his powers are. Well, God can tell you he's very powerful. Everybody's life depends on God. Essentially, yeah. Well, yeah. You cannot escape God. Now you can. People are having a war with God, with witchcraft and magic. But God will win that. God wins. And everybody else, people who want to do that will lose. So, if you said, if someone said to God, hey, why don't you walk on water or something, or turn water into wine or something, well, to be honest, God has no idea how to do it. None at all. But God can cause absolute chaos in this world, whether it's poverty, scandals, murder, all that kind of stuff, earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, thunderstorms, change the weather, Grant can manipulate the weather. He can make it get colder, he can make it get hotter, he can make it rain. It involves knowledge. It involves knowing what triggers it and playing this game of, it's knowing where to find the button and how to press it. That's God's power. So, God is pulling his powers back to him from all the thieves, all the ones who are masquerading as God, who want to shine like bright stars, pretending that they are God. You think of all the people who are on TV or movies or musicians, Taylor Swift, Rihanna, A$AP Rocky, Cara Delevingne, what a witch. All those kinds of people. Ian McKellen, who fell off a stage the other day. It's interesting because, Grant showed you that evil eye on his computer screen. Now, his computer screen is made by Asus. And it's a Republic of Gamers screen, which is ROG. Balrog. Grant was a Balrog player, a Street Fighter player. He's the boxer guy, Mike Tyson, Balrog. Used to play him for years ago. Ian McKellen, he was playing a character called Falstaff, fell off the stage. Grant's been waiting on all his Cambridge Bibles to come, Remember the battle between Balrog and Gandalf, he says, "You shall not pass," and he breaks the bridge and the Balrog and him fall down into the pit. It's witchcraft, is what it is. It's, Grant's talking about, matter and shit and this and that, well, where's Lord of the Rings? What's a ring for a start, Lord of the Rings. Oh, and it's set in a place called Middle Earth. Middle Earth. Yeah, what would you do if you looked in Simon's arsehole? What would you find in there? You'd find soil. Middle Earth. It's shit magic. It's shit magic. Grant has been talked about C.S. Lewis in the previous video. Go listen to it. Okay, Grant's gonna go. Bye.